Buy an Intel NUC Barebones PC and get a limited edition t-shirt and in-game items for PlanetSide 2. Click now to learn more. Welcome to my unboxing of the Be Quiet Power Zone power supply. This particular one is 650 watt, although it's available in a variety of wattages. And what is the point of the Power Zone line, you might ask? Well, to deliver what would traditionally be very premium features, such as their Silent Wings fan, so very quiet cooling, as well as a fully modular interface, 80 plus bronze certification for its efficiency, and all of that noise to a more reasonable price point. So let's go ahead and start opening this baby up. A lot of their branding for this power supply has to do with zones. So the performance zone, they're using DC to DC conversion and a single 12-volt rail. Cooling zone, you can actually cool up to 3 different parts of your case using the thermal control on the power supply with a built-in extension lead, which I think is pretty darn cool. Connection zone, so full cable management or modularity. Quiet zone, so it has a 135 millimeter Silent Wings fan. Green zone, so 80 plus bronze, which is not that exceptional these days. I mean, come on. And the safety zone, so of course it has the full suite of protections, which you shouldn't take for granted, to be perfectly honest. Many power supplies, even if they say they have them, don't necessarily have them implemented correctly. And finally, quality. The capacitors internally are rated for operation at 105 degrees, which means that if they're operating at lower temperatures than that, which they will, unless you live in the desert and you have your heat on in the house, then the power supply will last for a very long time. And now that we've got it opened up, we can have a look at what Be Quiet includes with the unit. So you've got your user's manual, which tells you what other products you could have bought, or well, I mean, they're just reusing the user's manual for different, products. You've also got a little sleeve that you will never put your power supply back in ever, because who would do that? But you can use it for other handy dandy little things like, I don't know, tools or whatever else. I usually hold on to these. They're extremely useful. You've got some cable ties as well as screws. These are longer extended screws, which will become apparent why you need those in just a moment, as well as the full complement of modular cables. And don't worry, they will include whatever is the actual appropriate power cord for your region for you. The only reason I got a European one is because I got this sampled directly from Be Quiet. So let's start with the PSU itself. Over here, we've got that 135 millimeter cooling fan on the bottom, as well as their very unique aesthetic. So it's a powder coat finished grill that, instead of having a circular shape to it or whatever else, just has a very straight shape, and I personally find looks quite striking. It's similar to what they have even on their higher end units like the Dark Power Pro. They've also got a Be Quiet logo that has that filled in sort of shiny color resin thing going on with it. It looks quite nice as well. So this is the side that you would normally see from this angle when it's installed in your case, or you could flip it over the other way and you could see all the safety certifications and all that. Speaking of safety certifications, like I said before, 648 watts of the 650 watts it can pump out can all be done on the 12-volt rail, and it is a single 12-volt rail, so you're not going to have to worry about accidentally plugging something into the wrong thing and accidentally triggering the overcurrent protection. On the back of the unit, you find, again, sort of a bit of a different aesthetic, and that's the reason why you need those slightly longer screws. I personally don't prefer this approach. I would have liked to see the power supply just be, a fraction of a centimeter shorter and just use standard screws, because this isn't rubber, it's plastic. So I don't imagine that it's going to reduce the vibration that'll be transferred to the case by the fan inside, which would have maybe been the intention. On the side, we find their Power Zone branding as well as a stamped texture that I think looks quite nice as well without being over the top. I mean, I think the last power supply I saw with black and orange cables had black, orange, and white, and had an outlandish orange and silver color scheme on it, and that I didn't find as tasteful as something like this. So now let's head on to the business end of the power supply. You've got 2 spots where you plug in the 20 pin, or however many pins that is. It's a split connector for the 24 pin, as well as up to 3 PCI Express cables that can be plugged in. 2 8-pin connectors can be plugged in with 4 auxiliary connectors, so that's Molex or SATA. And finally, there's those 3 fan leads that you can use to control separate fans with the fan controller that's built into the power supply. One feature that it does have, although I personally don't see much of a value to it, is that it can keep your fan spinning even once your power supply is turned off, so that, or not once your power supply is turned off, once your PC is turned off, so that components will cool down even after you've shut down. But when they're not running, there's really no danger of damage to the components, so I personally don't worry about that too much. What it can be useful for is hardcore benchmarking, where you want to keep the fans going to not have any of the sub-zero coolants cause condensation on the components or anything like that once it's turned off and it's not generating any heat anymore, then you can use those fans to blow it away. So there's something it could be used for, although I don't know how many hardcore benchmarkers are going to be using power zones compared to Dark Power Pros or something a little bit higher end. So what you might notice now that we have all of the cables plugged into the power supply is there are actually still empty ports left. So we have one peripheral one open, we have one PCI Express one open, and we have one of those 8-pin CPU connectors open. This is interesting to me because Be Quiet includes actually more ports than you need and fewer cables than fits in it, and I understand why. This is only a 650 watt power supply. Each of those PCI Express connectors supports two 6+2 pins, so that means you can run 2 graphics cards natively off of this power supply in SLI or Crossfire, but you shouldn't be running 3. So even though it had 3 connector spots, I mean, you shouldn't be doing that, so they just include 2 cables. So okay, I get that. And then same thing goes for the 8-pin. So you've just got a single 8-pin, reasonably long cable on here. I like that. You're going to be able to reach in almost any case with that. It's a 4+4. You probably shouldn't be using a 650 watt power supply in any kind of rig that would require 2 8-pins and 3 PCIe 8-pins. So there you go. Okay, so I kind of look at that and I go, okay, that's interesting. You've got your 24-pin connector, which is about average length, which is good because when this one's too long, it can just be a cable management mess. And then this is the one where I sort of scratch, actually no, let's go with this first. So next up, we've got those custom cables where you can plug them into the power supply, and then those will lead to either Molex, if you prefer, or to a 3-pin small fan connector if you would prefer that. Totally up to you. Just make sure, guys, that you don't plug this Molex into something that isn't a fan. See, it's clearly labeled fan because it only has 12 volt power. It doesn't actually have an additional ground and 5 volt power, so you don't want to risk damaging anything. Next, this is the one that made me scratch my head a little bit. They only include 3 peripheral or drive connector harnesses. So one of them is pure SATA, 4 SATA connectors. That's good because that you can run over to your drive cages. Next up, they've got, this is something Be Quiet does actually quite a good job of, is sensible arrangements of the connectors on their cables. So this one is 2 SATA, and I would have preferred to see SATA maybe a little bit further away from the power supply itself here because your drive cages are sometimes a bit of a distance. And then 2 4-pin Molexes, and then another one to match that, except it also adds an additional floppy. So I would have liked to see one more cable included, but if you're not going to plug in more than, I guess, 8 drives and 4 auxiliary things plus a floppy connector, then I guess it's not really a huge issue for you. And I guess with a 650 watt power supply, you probably shouldn't. I just like the way that with a lot of their units, they give you a lot of options in terms of the cables you can connect. But of course, you have to make compromises on the more value-oriented products, and the fact that you're getting full modularity and all those other great features makes it pretty compelling. Thank you for checking out my unboxing and overview of the Be Quiet Power Zone. Don't forget to subscribe to Linus Tech Tips for more unboxings, reviews, and other computer videos. Like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it, and leave a comment telling me why you liked or disliked it, because I actually do read them and I genuinely enjoy getting your feedback.